Chag Sameach. Good Yontiv. It's Ebrahimoff, the Haftorahman, with the Haftorah for the second day of Sukkot. It's a fun one. It's one of my favorites. But then again, I say that every week. So now you have from the book of Melachim, what's going on? The dedication of the Beit HaMikdash. Why are we picking this Haftorah for Sukkot? Because if you look at the text, it'll explain the connection is that the dedication of the first Beit HaMikdash that was built by Shlomo HaMelech took place for 2 weeks, and one of those weeks was the week of Sukkot that it happened. So it starts in Perachet, Pasuk Aleph, and it talks about how they had the Mishkan, and they were moving the Mishkan, the tabernacle, they were moving the Aron HaKodesh, the ark, the holy ark with the luchot inside, to the city of Yerushalayim. Vayikahalu HaMelech Shlomo. So this is the great Shlomo HaMelech, the wisest man that ever lived, that had 700 wives, 300 concubines, lots of horses, was the wealthiest person that made hundreds of millions of dollars a year in those days. So he had it all. And that we know the famous story with him and the Queen of Sheba. And we know that he had all these wonderful, wonderful conversations with all the animals, and he had the zechut to build the Beit HaMikdash. That's just a little bit about Shlomo HaMelech. He also was the one that instituted Nitilat Yadayim before Hamotzi, and also that the Eruv comes from a decree by Shlomo HaMelech. So there's numerous things that you could talk for hours about Shlomo HaMelech. But here we go. He's a young man. He was made king at the age of 16. He actually bar mitzvah age. He started building the Beit HaMikdash at 16, and he completed it after 7 years. The Beit HaMikdash was now going to be dedicated. Remember, he passed away at the age of 52. So, Vayikalu al Melech Shlomo Kol Ish Yisrael. So everybody in the nation of Israel gathered around Be'yerach ha'etonim, in the month of the giants. What month? B'chag hu hachodesh hashivii, in the 7th month. The name Tishrei is a Babylonian name. This is pre-Babylonian exile. So they refer to the month by the number of the month, counting from Nisan as month number 1. So now it's the 7th month, and all the Ziknei Yisrael with the Kohanim, all the elders come with the high priest, the priest, with the Aron. And they lift the Aron and the Ohel Moed. They go and they take all of the holy utensils from the services that they did in the Mishkan, and that they are rising up in front of the Beit HaMikdash where Shlomo HaMelech had built. And the Kohanim bring the Aron into the area where it was going to rest in the Kadosh HaKdashim. And the angels, the cherubim, their wings were spread, and that they sat there. And inside the ark was only 2 things. The Shnei Luchot HaAvanim, the first ones, the smashed ones, the broken ones, and the full ones. Vayhi b'tzeda kohanim min hakodesh v'hanan malei et habayit. So now there's a little problem here. You can't get the smoke. God's Holy Spirit smoke is not evacuating the temple, so they can't do the worship over there. Az amar Shlomo, Hashem amar lishkon ba'arafel. So what is the doubt over here? Yichus. The doubt was, who's this David HaMelech, Shlomo's father? Was he really the king Shlomo? Was he the eldest at the time? That wasn't even the problem. The question was David a sinner? What sin? He was married. Okay, but you could have multiple wives. Who does he see? Bathsheba. That he sees Bathsheba, and he was about 55, David HaMelech. He lived in Ir David. Anybody who's visited the city of David can see it's a very small place. And he looked off of the palace rooftop, and he looked onto another rooftop. Must have been one of his neighbors. And she was bathing, this Bathsheba was bathing on the rooftop, as the story goes. He summons her. He thinks she's very beautiful. He summons her. It turns out she was married. However, whenever men would go out to war, they would sign a divorce decree, so in case they don't return, the wife is not hanging there, waiting for years and years for her husband to come back. So she was married to Uriah, and as the story goes, she comes, she stays with David HaMelech, And then Uriah comes later on to him, and he sends Uriah to the front line. David HaMelech sends Uriah to the front line, and with papers that were given to his general, Avshalom, and he gets killed. The soldier, the husband, Uriah Hachiti, the Hittite, was killed. So the question was looming, was David a sinner? So now, at the dedication services of the Beit HaMikdash, all the Kohanim, all Am Yisrael, and the Aron in the Beit HaMikdash, ready to go? No. Now what? So they start saying Tehillim, 26 Tehillim in the Midrash it says. Nothing works. Until, I will paraphrase, that Shlomo HaMelech, the 23-year-old king of Israel, says, in the name of my righteous, holy Father that has not been held as a sinner, I'm praying that the doors of the Beit HaMikdash open and the smoke goes out. And then, in front of all Am Yisrael, it was shown that David HaMelech was forgiven for what he did, and that all of Am Yisrael couldn't have like a little chip on their shoulder about who Shlomo was. Shlomo had the big green light then to lead the people and to take them through their spiritual journey, worshiping in the great temple in the city of Jerusalem. So this Haftarah is read. It took place about 3,000 years ago in Yerushalayim with Shlomo on Sukkot. So this is the great news. This is the connection. Chag Sameach, Gid Yontif.